Last few things that you might want to try just to start off with After Effects would be to use some of the painting sort of techniques that you can use in here. If you wanted to like hand paint something, paint with a mouse, paint with a Wacom tablet of some sort, something like that. So they don't make it super easy for us. It's a little easier to do this in Photoshop, but if you want to try it in After Effects, there are a few things you can do here that are pretty great. And so the main thing would just be like make a comp that you can remember, and then in order to paint in After Effects, you have to go ahead and make a layer. So you're going to go up here within that, and you're going to want to go to new layer, and you just let's go ahead and make a solid layer. I'm just going to go with white just to just to kind of keep it easy. So now you have basically like a white layer on top of the black layer, right? And so what you can do now is if you wanted to, you could grab this brush tool and start trying to paint, but it's not going to allow you to paint on that because in After Effects you can't paint in the comp. You can only paint in the layer. So you have to double click the layer. So basically open up the layer. You'll see that it kind of brings up a different thing here. This is your comp in your viewer, and this is the actual layer itself. But now I can go in here and I can grab my paintbrush, and you'll see over here you've got some options for what you're looking at here, right? So if you wanted to make your brush black, you could change the color, whatever you want to do. If you wanted to make it a little bigger, you can click here on this button and it'll give you options for the different kinds of brushes that you might be able to use. But there's lots of different things that you can kind of play around with, opacity and flow and things like that. So now if I just start painting, right, and paint some squiggles on there, and I go forward, now that paint is going to be visible the whole time on that layer, right? Same thing here, like it's just all, so you can see how that just appeared, and then if I scroll forward another frame, that's going to be visible. So it's kind of like I'm painting on a piece of paper over time, right? And so again, if you want to know, well, what am I doing? If you scroll down in here and you just keep going deep down in there, you'll see that these are all the brush strokes that we just added, right? And so if I don't like what I did, I can just select those brush strokes and delete them out of there. But so that's fine, not the greatest thing in the whole wide world, to be honest. There's different modes that you can choose, like multiply or all those things that you can play around with. But the one that we really want to mess with here is this one that's called duration. So we had it set as default at constant. So that means if I draw something in there on that frame, it's just always going to be visible, right? It's constantly going to be there. And then I move forward a frame, and then I drew another chunk, and that chunk is visible, right? And so it's just constantly on. So we don't really want that. What we probably want to do is go to this one that says like single frame would be a way to do like frame by frame animation. So you just I could draw a thing like this, and then I could move forward a frame and then draw another thing, right? And then move forward a frame and try and now that object would kind of look like it's moving across the screen, right? Again, all of my brush strokes are here under effects, so I can just delete those. So that would be single frame. The one that a lot of us tend to use for if you're going to use After Effects for this would be the one that's called Right On, right? So here, if I again go back to the beginning of my timeline and I start painting, now I could go like this, and I can make a little like looping kind of like elegant thing. I'll try. It's with a mouse, so don't judge, right? So let's say I want to do that, and then if I push the play button, you'll see now that that it kind of recorded the brush stroke. So this is a cool thing that that After Effects can kind of do for us, right? So now if I go back to the composition, right, I'll actually see this this play itself out, hopefully. Yeah, there you go. So starting. And so, it's just going to move its way through my composition. It just ran out of steam here because the composition is not long enough. So again, the solution for that would be to come up here and go to composition settings, go to my duration down here, and instead of making it like, that, I'll probably make it more like 30 seconds. So now, that whole effect that I had there is going to go longer. I just have to stretch the timeline out a little more, and now I should be able to see that that whole effect kind of happen, right? So this can be pretty useful for different things, like if you wanted to kind of animate a line a little more freeform, especially if you have a tablet or you're really skilled at drawing or painting. It might be something that is useful. And you'll notice how it kind of got a little slowed down and stuttery down there. That would be because it's using a RAM preview here to show us what this is going to look like, right? But it's not really it's not actually like the full representation. In order to really see what we're looking at, we're going to have to like export this thing out and bake it and see what it looks like when it gets out of the oven. So, but it's going to be useful. Like, so now if I wanted to, I could open up like another, another one of these compositions, and I could get my paint one. I could drag that one in, and I could nest the paint one on top. And now, like, as it goes along, let's see if we can get the show. Oh, I see, I did something wrong there. I'd pick a different one then, not that one. Let's see, let's go to, do this one. Okay. So now if I just make that fit in there, then I can grab my paint and drop it in. And now, like, as it moves its way through, again, it's just going to give me it's going to paint right over the top, right? And so I could play around with that by, changing my mode for that particular composition layer. So if I change the blending mode to like multiply or screen or something like that, it would interact with the thing that's underneath it. I could also apply an effect to that whole thing. So if I go to up here to my effects and I choose like something like key light, I could go ahead and just get rid of all the white by selecting the white stuff, and that will kind of delete that out of there, right? So there's just a lot of different sort of options that you can play around with where you can use those painted layers on top of other things. So it might be a thing that you could make use of and play around with as you get more advanced with After Effects. But again, it's not the easiest place to do like frame by frame animation, but it's totally possible, and there's tons of tutorials that'll walk you through it in more detail.